What is going on, people? Welcome back. Johnny here, and I'd like to thank you guys for the comments, the likes. Please keep those coming. They help me out. They show me people that are paying attention and interested. We are going to cover some awesome ground today, get several new dwarfs in the colony, and start expanding a bit. It's about that time. So, Gotrik's still in charge of this mess. Gold count still doesn't rise dramatically high yet, but we will get there once we get to the massive amount of trading we're going to be doing in a little while. So with that, let's pick up with Gotrik. His spell is ready. He finally manages to turn his pickaxe into a legendary pickaxe. I don't know if I should be doing that in terms of wealth, but there it is. He does have the most renowned pickaxe in all of the land, and he's decided to gift it to Brunder, who's doing most of the mining, considering that the pickaxe will facilitate faster mining. So there you go. You can see at this point, early on, we only have the 3 people we left off with last time, and things are still kind of a mess everywhere. Without enough people to do all the work, we're struggling a bit. Gotrik decides he's going to do some deconstruction and claim some resources nearby. So he begins working on that. That project will be short-lived, though, as there's just too much meaningful stuff to do. Cadorson, the wild man that we had rescued last episode, decides to join us this time. And it didn't take long. He's a welcome member of the team. It does put us in a pinch for additional bedroom space. Also, he's at risk of infection where he's laying, as we found out with Hayes. But regardless, some blocks fell out of the sky in the form of cyanite we can use to build stuff. Cadorson has a mental break and starts smashing stuff up in what he believes to be his bedroom. We've tamed a few pigs that we will end up slaughtering at some point. It becomes a priority to get a bedroom done for Cadorson. You can see the wealth of the colony has gone bananas. This is in large part due to all the warpstone that we mined and that is now laying around. It's a little bit scary considering it could lead to a pretty significant raid. We still need a way to preserve food. We've yet to make any inroads down that path, but wildlife is abundant and we've been able to keep veggies coming in as well, at least a slow trickle. An ogre is passing by. Doesn't have anything to trade. Just walking through the area. Hopefully he doesn't get hungry for a dwarf. There is blood in the air. Bunch of mad deer show up. Speaking of meat, but none of them get through the traps. So, delicious dinner is in order in the form of venison. These guys not being tainted by scaria or any other bizarre diseases as far as we can tell. So the deer get dealt with. The mining continues. Brenner's got a mission of cleaning up what he's calling the courtyard area, and it's about that time that the Skavens show up, wishing to do us harm. There's a few different groups of them. We do notice some abandoned Skaven technology in the south while we're poking around, checking those dudes out, but we'll have to get to that later. Gotrik mounts up on a horse. We do have several horses now, of course. Typical RimWorld animals. These things are breeding like rabbits in the real world. While Brender's riding a horse, another horse starts mating with it. That stallion just can't keep it under control, apparently, during this season. It does make Brender significantly faster when he runs around. Gotrik's on one as well. Poses some interesting options for future battles. I don't know how it affects melee skill, but I do know that there's a chance that the horse will be struck rather than the rider. Gotrik has access to Final Transmutation again. He's upgraded it to its final level. He does fail to turn one of the Ratmen into gold. As the Ratmen trickle in through the trap corridor, which was never rebuilt after the deer, the magic users unload on them. Brunder's tied up. He does get shot. A little friendly fire, although perhaps it hit the horse. Cadorson, not necessarily what he should be in terms of an archer, apparently. So the downed rats are investigated for their abilities. And the other batch of them is entering the trap corridor. what once was the trap corridor before they all got destroyed. Regardless, the direct damage and magic missile spells are quick to reload. So, sadly, Gotrik, due to having cast Final Transmutation, is out of magic ability. He can't get himself a shield, and he can't do direct damage. So him and Brunder charge in, get to the business of knocking this Ratman's head off. One of them's attacking Gotrik, but it's bouncing off the armor. Solid Dwarven armor, always an awesome thing. There's another downed Ratman. None of them end up being worth capturing and converting. I'm not trying to stay terribly true to Warhammer on this one in terms of certainly Dwarfs and Skaven not working together. If we see an awesome Skaven, we might bring him into the fold. We did bring in a human as our second, so... Anyways, Gotrik's regaining magic power after the battle. The horse was indeed injured by the recurve bow, so Cadorson feels a little sad about that. There you go. There's a party on. Everybody's hanging out. They even brought some horses in to celebrate with them for some god-awful reason. A lot of smoke, a lot of animal filth, smoke from the forge as well, no doubt. And then everybody goes to bed. Cadorson brings himself a horse to bed and then thinks better of it. A meteorite of silver falls nearby, and that will be very useful, although the wealth situation is already a bit out of hand around here. So until we can reduce that by having hopefully some ogres show up to sell us more people stuff, it's just going to be what it is. Cadorson gets food poisoning, and that's going to be a theme here for a while. We built some shelves next to the cook stove just to keep the food handy. Given that the food poison starts running rampant, a little kitchen, clean kitchen space is in order. So Brunder gets busy working on that. At least mining out a cave, some space for it. Traps are rebuilt. There's still ambrosia in the north, nearly ready to be harvested. Hayes ends up going down due to smoke leaf, food poisoning, just a general human weakness according to the dwarfs around, but he doesn't take it too personal because he's too darn sick at the moment to think about what they think about him. Regardless, the kitchen is mined. The poor wizard staff could be improved with some magic at some point. Gotrik gets to the business of putting in some sterile-ish floors in order to hopefully keep the cooking area clean. And the food shelves get moved into the new little cook space. At some point, some type of refrigeration is going to be necessary. Hopefully, some magical artifacts can be found, or something else can be devised. Perhaps we could get into food preservation, but as soon as we do that, we'll no doubt encounter a freezing statue, and then none of it will matter anymore. Food poisoning after food poisoning after food poisoning strikes the hold, all due to a dirty cook area. That whole stack of food should be thrown away, but we're a little short on food at the moment. Gotrik decides to see if he's tough enough to have food poisoning and smoke a doober. Turns out he's not. He also goes down. One of those rats left us those joints, and they've been nothing but a thorn in our side. Gotrik barfs all over the gold, which should be a grudge against him in the old book of grudges, but since he is the man who had the idea of this undertaking, while Gotrik's still down and out, another threat appears in the form of humans, and they come charging down the trap corridor. Sadly, Cadorson is trapped outside, but they seem to ignore him for some god-awful reason. Perhaps because he was a wild man. In all honesty, they should have went after him the way they do, but I believe his wild man status protected him. So the dwarves breach, or sorry, some of them are dwarves. They're outcasts. The outcasts breach the courtyard area. Brunder charges out and starts cracking heads. They're going to try to make an effort to capture some of these guys if they're decent. Nithkin over here does have an annoying voice and a painful scratch scar. He's also carrying grenades, though. Somehow, while Hayes is plowing shots into him with magic, he loses line of sight, likely due to the yak having walked in front of it, I believe. Regardless, the spell can't be cast. He does try to use a snare spell. There are a few dwarfs over there, and snaring them would be nice. Apparently they wander out of range before it can happen, though, because it never goes off. Cadorsen's going to try and take some of these guys out on their way out of here. Nithkin seems to have some really legit skills. It's too bad we didn't mount up on horses right away, rather than screwing around, because we could have caught these guys, done some damage, and then captured them, potentially recruiting more Dowie. However, Cadorsen focuses on bringing down the human, despite that human's pretty legitimate armor. And he succeeds. That armor should hopefully be smeltable, and he left us a nice great bow, so Cadorsen claims his prize immediately, and also decides to strip the body. At that point, there's a mad boomrad coming in, but there also happens to be a few traps, so it's problem solved. The more and more animal problems we have around here, the more consideration needs to be put into security. Thrumbos show up at that point, and we're pretty short on meat, so the hold here decides probably we could use Hayes' magic coupled with a really good hunter to take those beasts down. No real risk to ourselves. An Empire caravan approaches at that point, and Gotrik runs out to do some trading. It is a recruit caravan, so they do have some dwarfs with them. They also do buy warpstone, of which we have massive. So 2 dwarfs are purchased, Cadorsen number 2 and Stone Shield. We sell all the warpstone. We also buy a massively expensive helmet of regeneration for Gotrik. We can kind of pass that around as people get injured or suffer disease, and it will improve healing rates across the board, so we don't need to worry as much, especially with Hayes, about him dying of a weird infection. Despite that massive purchase, thus far the wealth of the colony has not dropped. We do uncover some jade in the caverns, and it's time to mine out some extra bedrooms and prepare for how we're going to rework things around here. We need some cross hallways, some space to expand other than just in a southerly direction. So we have to plan for that as a part of hold expansion. The yak that was left by the outcast gets butchered and results in a fair bit of meat. Gotrik leveled up and has new magic points available. Tiny small critters keep coming in and dying on the traps. Seems to be a never-ending theme. It's at that point that Hayes finally decides to act upon his idea, snaring magically a Thrumbo and then having it put down instantly for a clean kill that hopefully doesn't anger the other one. Needless to say, it does go off without a hitch. Research carries on. Need gates, structures, so on and so forth. Excuse me. In order to carry on, make this as nice as possible. These weak human doors just aren't as appealing as they should be. The meat continues to rot away. 2 dwarfs end up getting the plague at that point. Cadorsen number 1. We'll have to rename Cadorsen number 2 shortly. And Stone Shield. So, yeah, not too cool, but there it is. They will get tended to, and in a pinch we can give them Gotrik's helmet if they don't recover very quickly. Regardless, one of those new dwarves is good at medicine, so Stone Shield takes over the tending. We now have a big area to eat in. We're going to make a little feasting hall that should suffice for the time being. Most of the food rots away or is cooked at that point, so something's going to have to be done. Some dwarves are passing by, and Hayes decides once again he's going to run out there and use his snare along with a solid melee guy just in case things go south, and takes out a large cat for some extra meat. They've been struggling with food and we've been growing really fast. Dwarven Smithy caravan shows up at that point too, and that could have some solid potential. Our wealth did significantly drop when we sold all the warpstone. Not as much as I would have liked to see it drop, but there it is. Perhaps we need to do something with all the warpstone powder. So we buy some medicine, some other weaponry. It's about time everybody was as well armed as possible, considering the threats that no doubt will be arriving before long. As wealth and development show up, so do the enemies that want to take it away from you. Turns out that plate armor wasn't smeltable. It's still sitting in the grass in the north. I'm not sure what that was about. Seems like it certainly should be smeltable. Start building shelves. Cadorson has a mental break to insult people. Gotrik uses some magic to clear his head. It makes him non-cathartic, but at least the insults stop immediately before the whole place spirals out of control. We research apparel, and we go for advanced light and heat. We do have a bunch of naked dwarfs around, so it's high time we got some clothing going around here. We do have a really good tailor just chomping at the bit to make some clothes. So there you go. The new bedrooms are being worked on in earnest. Floors are being smoothed. Certainly would be significantly quicker to put in floors, but I always run out of blocks in these dwarven playthroughs. So we're going to see if we can't stick to the smoothing. And most of the people we have are active on that. Some traders show up looking to buy, sell, not much. We get rid of all the crappy bows we picked up from people. There's many of them as we can. We do buy some additional components just to balance out the funds. And with that, those people mill around. Some silver and some components come in. At some point, we'll be needing abundances of these. They also leave us a gift of 8 additional components, which is pretty phenomenal. As they scutter off, we wave goodbye. Trina, Bull, you're good people. May Sigmar protect you. Hayes has become the de facto researcher when he's not hauling or cleaning. And the new bedrooms are almost ready. At least we can get bodies in the beds. We do need to shift some other people around because right where their bedrooms are is where the hallways are going to go. We'll remake that space. Get into advanced furniture so we can make some double beds should the need arise. People couple up. A lost miner joins us at that point. Jagged Rock pops out of a tunnel of his own creation, starving, but he is a Laura Metal magic user, which, while not appropriate for Warhammer, is definitely appropriate for a dwarf. I would have preferred some variation in the lores I had, but he's also capable of the same forge spell that Gotrik has that improves the quality of a weapon pretty dramatically. So we will work through improving lots of our equipment around here for whatever it's worth. The only downside really being the wealth increases every time we do that kind of crap, and perhaps that's a part of the issue we're having already with the legendary weaponry. Jagged Rock makes himself a bedroom straight away, and everybody else looking good. Jagged Rock's bedroom's nowhere near done, but at least he's got a place to lay his head. Bunch of mad rats die on the traps while all the meat that we've have queued up for cooking rots away, which is no bueno. A bear gets into it with a Mournfang, and neither of them come through. Sadly, they're also both very near to rotting, but it looks like the Mournfang can yet be rescued, butchered up. It's pretty chill around the hold now. We have a lot of people working, and a lot of stuff is getting done fast. We've come a long way already. One of our foals is killed at that point by a marauding troll. Hayes can't take it. He goes out there and snares that troll magically and then whaps him out with his staff. It seems pretty brutal, but apparently it works. Cuthrum's chopping trees. We're short on wood, and we're going to queue up a bunch of that. We have a lot of items using wood. And at that point, it's time to get on to some proper recreation. We've also expanded the main hallways, moved some bedrooms around, mined out some steel. We mined out the silver meteor that had fallen over there too. And there's a whole lot of wood laying about that we can bring in and use. We still haven't finished deconstructing all the old structures that are on the left side of the map. A Jabaslav wanders in at that point. And Hayes is getting pretty used to how to take out these massive animals. So, without further ado, he grabs his handy-dandy snare spell and walks on out to deal with the foul beast. We no longer have to tolerate these critters causing us problems. And he can melee attack it straight to death. Oh, he can also just finish it off, it turns out. So there you go. And he brings that thing in for butchering. Now its meat is going to be no-go in terms of consumption. However, its tongue has good potential to give magic abilities. And by good, I mean 5%. So we see if we can get Cadorson to become a Chaos Wizard by eating it. But needless to say, it fails. He does receive a significant amount of Chaos Corruption, but at least he doesn't get food poisoning from it, despite it being a pretty high chance. We'll just hope he doesn't go mad due to the Chaos Corruption. There's Chaos meat laying all around. Something has to be done with it. We've overflowed the zone we had set aside for Chaos meat. And we do set Cadorson to hunting, as again, the meat keeps rotting away about as fast as we can consume it. The blight struck the potatoes. At some point, we have to figure out apparel, armor, lots of different stuff. Burial. We're going to go for advanced walls and structures. That'll give us the ability to make embrasures. Stone Shield fits right in as she sits and admires the gold, craving that wealth and loving the look of it. There are some visitors from the ogre tribes, and they've decided to exit the map as well. Horse meat rots away massively. We also need to get to the business of smoothing out a whole lot of floors and walls so that our feasting hall looks appropriate. And with that, it's getting close to time to wrap this one up. You can see we've made some pretty awesome progress. Again, I do very much appreciate comments. I respond to them all. I read them all. Likes help me out if you have nothing to say, but just want to show me that you're there and you care. There's a wild minotaur roving about yet, but doesn't seem to be causing any problems. We know he's not a beastman minotaur per se. Clearly he is. A warhammer. Anyway, that's it, guys. Thanks for being here. I love you all, and I shall see you next time.